Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Kaiju Spacezilla, and this is KaijuNoir. It's an honor to be reviewing with him. Such an awesome guy, and one of the people who got me doing this.
Thank you very much, man. It's an honor for you to invite me here on your channel.
Thank you, man. You are one of the reasons why I decided to get on YouTube, bro. Okay, first, story. Godzilla City on the Edge of the Battle takes place right after Godzilla Planet of the Monsters and introduces and it starts with, and it shows our character Haruo waking up with this mysterious girl. Yeah. Anyways, what did you think of the story?
Yeah, well, I guess to continue off what you were talking about, yes, this movie does pick up right after the events of the last film, which was Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, in which the whole team has been separated. Haruo gets rescued by a native girl that we later learn is, I believe, Miana, I think, or Mina. I'm not sure.
Yes, that's her name.
I already forgot which of the twins.
I think that's her name.
I know both of the twins' names, but I just don't remember which one is which. But anyway, he is rescued by them. He eventually gets reunited with the rest of his team. The rest of his team discover that there exists a humanoid, human-like species still living on the planet, and that they have been utilizing a piece of alien technology to fight off the monsters and animals on the planet, which lead them to discover Mechagodzilla City, and Mechagodzilla City being what used to be Mechagodzilla, which then later evolved into this gigantic array of nanometal weapons and machinery. So now Haruo and his team pretty much have to use Mechagodzilla City to formulate a new plan, which is essentially the same plan as before, in order to kill this new giant, bigger version of Godzilla. And so, as you were just asking me now, my thoughts on the overall story, for me, I feel like it improves in some areas while not doing a whole lot to improve itself from the last film. What I mean is that we have this movie introduces a lot of very interesting ideas. We have the native tribes with the Hotowa. Oh, no, sorry, that's the Japanese name. Futsuwa, that's the Japanese name. Hotowa, that's the English name. So yeah, we have the Hotowa native tribe. We have the Miana and Mina using telekinetic abilities to communicate to other people. We have the nanometal. We have Mechagodzilla City. We have the little, what do you call it, conflict of interest and the conflicting philosophies of the Bilisaludians and the humans. However, I feel like none of these ideas were reached to their full potential here. I feel like every idea that was introduced here felt very half-assed, and it overall led to a very dull, very boring experience for me. And by the time we got to the climax of the movie, it just felt like they were rehashing elements of the climax to the last film, save for like a couple of new additions here and there. What were your thoughts on the story?
I really enjoyed it, but I can see your point. I really enjoyed how it did take place after Planet of Monsters, of how this native girl caught him and how everything turned out. I really enjoyed it. It did a great job, for me at least, at continuing the story, but still hyping up for the next. Like when Metfist was that his name?
Metfees.
Yeah, Metfees went up to Haruo and asked him and started telling him the name of the monster, and on the after credit actually telling us. I thought it was a great little hype. It did a great job at being similar to the first, but at the same time being different. As for the climax goes, I can see your point there, but for me, I didn't really mind it. I liked how, for me, like in the first, how he used his plan to kill the first Godzilla, which was Godzilla Filius. So for me, it didn't bother me. Like, he wanted to try it again to see if it'll work a second time, which is understandable. Like, plan worked the first time, why not try it a second time? Which didn't bother me.
I get what you're talking about. It does make sense that if something worked the first time, you want to try it on a grander scale. It does make sense from a logical point of view, but for me, on like an entertaining scale, you'd think that like for each movie you want to do something different to entertain the audiences.
Very true.
You don't want to just like redo the last movie, because then what's the point of audiences watching the second movie when they can just watch the first movie again?
Exactly. I see your point right there. Very understandable point of view. But for me, I was looking at it as a logical standpoint, and I liked it. But I could see your point of view there. I very much understand that.
All right then.
I also liked it. Some of how much more of the world we learned about. Like we learned about more of Godzilla's creation, like how he was literally explaining it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm not really sure because I don't recall them ever explaining this version of Godzilla's origin. I recall there was a moment where I believe it was like the blonde scientist guy, or rather the guy who was giving scientific exposition. He was expositing how humans created monsters. And I don't think to let people know, I watched the movie back when it came out in, I want to say March in Japan, and I watched it just the other day on Netflix in English. I don't recall him ever going into detail as to where any of the monsters came from. He just said that humans created Godzilla, or humans gave rise to monsters, but we never really got anything anywhere deeper other than that.
Oh, it's very true there. I did like, though, how we did get a little flashback of how it was bringing up pollution, nuclear radiation, Godzilla being chosen. But once again, I see your point there.
Yeah, it's a good idea, like, but I feel like this is something that has already been done before by other means.
True.
Like, for instance, we did have, like, in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, where humanity indirectly was responsible for creating Godzilla by mutating the Godzillasaurus with the nuclear bomb testing, and then actually recreating him intentionally again in the 90s with a nuclear submarine. The idea has been toyed with a lot, I feel like, in past Godzilla projects, but
true.
So this whole thing of humans creating monsters, it wasn't, again, good idea, but it didn't impress me enough because I feel like they were just barely scratching the surface off of something that was already done better in other stuff.
I understand that. Still, like you said, good idea, but like you said, it's been done in other stuff, so yeah, very true right there.
Okay.
What else did I like about the story? I also liked it how the characters progressed, but I'll be getting more into the characters when we go on to acting and characters.
Okay.
Which, yeah, I did really enjoy that. What else?
How are your thoughts on how Mechagodzilla was treated in this continuity?
A little disappointed, to be honest, but it didn't. At least they did try something original with it. I did like how they tried something unique by making it where he was destroyed not 20 years ago.
20,000.
How many years ago was it again?
20,000.
20,000 years ago, and making it where since he's alien technology, he became a city and was able to fight Godzilla. It was a unique idea, but I would have liked how it was advertised. I would have liked to see, well, Mechagodzilla. Still a cool idea, though, and in my personal opinion, it was executed well and something that felt fresh. It was original. Still, I would have preferred to see Mechagodzilla, but for what it was, I liked it. Handled pretty well.
Okay. For me, I'm kind of going to be on the opposite side. I mean, this is going to be a recurring theme throughout the rest of this review, in case you haven't noticed, ladies and gentlemen. But I was very disappointed. Like, first off, I didn't know because I was like one of the first, like, I guess you could say Westerners to have seen the movie when it originally came out. I was fully expecting Mechagodzilla to be in the movie. I mean, after all, they were advertising Mechagodzilla. They were making merchandise off of this version of Mechagodzilla. Toho wanted to let you know that Mechagodzilla was in this movie. So I
like how 98 was advertising its thing overly, but the advertising wasn't as it was promised.
Right. It was like, hey, this is a Godzilla movie, even though, and if you notice, like, all the advertising for Godzilla 98 was hiding the fact that Godzilla looked nothing like Godzilla.
Exactly.
Because that just goes to show you that the marketing team knew what audiences were expecting and what audiences wanted. So for us as Godzilla fans, oh, go ahead.
They were intelligent.
Right. So Toho knows that us fans want Mechagodzilla. They know that we want to see Mechagodzilla, so they did their damnedest to make sure we supposedly got the message that Mechagodzilla was in this movie. But no, he wasn't. Like, he supposedly fought Godzilla off-screen 20,000 or so years ago, lost the majority of his body, so his head ended up developing this gigantic city. Which, again, a very interesting idea. It would have been very cool to have seen Mechagodzilla evolve into this sort of gigantic metropolis that was like teeming with maybe cybernetic life, and maybe this city could pull a Metroplex from Transformers. For those who don't know, Metroplex is a Transformer city that turns into a Transformer itself. I was kind of expecting that.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to have like some sort of HAL 9000 AI program. Maybe it gained sentience of some kind. But we don't really get to see that. Like, what Mechagodzilla City ends up being is just a bunch of domes, pipes, and turret guns. Oh, and a 3D printer.
Yeah. For me, what they should have done was, though, show us a fight between a real Mechagodzilla and Godzilla, like a flashback or something.
Right, yeah.
Then do the Mechagodzilla City.
I feel like when the writers were approaching this material, it felt like they wanted to do the exact opposite of what fans were expecting. And it takes serious
It was
balls.
a middle finger.
Kind of, yeah. I feel like these were people who were not really Godzilla fans. I mean, for the most part, from what I understand, most of the people attached to this project are just people from the anime business. But the people attached to this program, they probably said, hey, let's go against audiences' expectations and do something radically different with these characters. Rather than giving them what they want, let's give them something different. And again, I appreciate that. It's a very intriguing premise. But again, to state what I said here, nothing that they did here was interesting. The ideas were interesting, but the execution in itself was very flawed, or rather restricted. I feel like they couldn't go all the way with this thing. Because again,
I see your point.
I feel like we have, like, in the climax, we ended up seeing Godzilla supposedly fighting Mechagodzilla City, and it results in Mechagodzilla City building a hole for Godzilla to be trapped in, and shooting a bunch of turrets at it. And I feel sure, it's a nice amount of turrets, but there's nothing interesting about those turrets.
It lacks the spirit of Mechagodzilla.
Right. And like, it would be cool if we actually got like facets of Mechagodzilla's weaponry throughout the city. Like, imagine the what's it called? The maser cannon from the Millennium films. Imagine like a one building shooting a maser cannon. Imagine another building shooting the paralyzer cables from the Heisei movie. Imagine like another building creating a force field like the Showa Mechagodzilla did. Or imagine another one having like robotic hands that shot little like spinny hand missiles like from the Showa series. Imagine like each part of Mechagodzilla City had a different weapon that corresponded with like a previous weapon that Mechagodzilla had in past films. But
that sounds very interesting.
But no, it's just the same weapon, which is just a boring turret, like sci-fi turret gun, copy and paste it over and over.
Yeah, it would have been cool if we got all of that stuff you mentioned. Yeah, like I said, cool idea, and I liked seeing it, and I did think it was executed well for the most part, but I would have liked to have seen what you mentioned. What you mentioned should have been used in a movie. Well, it felt more Mechagodzilla, more exciting.
It could have been more, or better yet, if you gave Mechagodzilla any sort of personality, like give it the sense that there is a computer mind controlling all this thing. But no, like Mechagodzilla has like no sense of personality. It's just a tool for the characters to use.
He's just a weapon, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I liked him for the most part, but we could have had more personality with him, more weaponry, more stuff to do with him. He would have been even more interesting if they would have done that. But sadly, he's just turrets. I liked it for the most part, but we should have had all of that stuff in the Heisei, Showa, Millennium, all of that. Maybe even throw in some of their own weapons for it. Right. But it's just turrets, making it kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and I guess I will give credit to the fact that they did put a lot of emphasis on the vultures, but I guess we'll go into the vultures when we talk about the action and how the animation, how that's handled.
Yes.
All right, so should we go ahead to characters and acting?
Yes.
All right, so what are your thoughts?
I think it's great. We get a lot of great actors like Kana Hanazawa. I forgot the actor who played Haluo's name, but he's a great actor. He played characters like Light Yagami and Death Note and many others.
Are you talking about the Japanese?
Takahiro Sakurai.
Talking about the Japanese voice actor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I think the voice actor, yeah, he did do Light Yagami, and I believe he also did Setsuna F. Seiei from Gundam 00. And me being a
Yeah.
big Gundam fan who actually grew up with 00 back in high school, it was very nice to hear this voice actor again.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor, a very talented guy. Like in Planet of Monsters, he does a great job of playing this angry, unstable guy with a hatred towards Godzilla. In this one, I liked his character. I love how he progressed from this angry guy that had a hatred towards Godzilla to a point where he risked lives. And but he was but when he was taken by that native, he calmed down, became more nice. And I like how when he was talking to the native girl and being very calm and nice to her. And as the film went along, he became this very nice guy and then wasn't unstable. Even at the end, he wasn't doing everything he can to kill Godzilla, making where he's not this one-dimensional character. And his performance in the first movie, he did a great job of making me feel this guy's angry and just unstable. Here, I liked how he played more calm, just showing how great of an actor he is to really portray off most emotions. The American actor wasn't too bad either. Still wasn't as great as the Japanese actor, but
I think
overall, I really liked Haruo here. He had a more softer side here. He was more calm. He wasn't this angry, unstable guy anymore. He developed from that stage, and I believed him, and his performance was top-notch with great lines of dialogue, and I was interested in him and actually felt for him at the end. Really enjoyed him here. How about your thoughts on Haruo?
Let's see. I do definitely see where you're coming from, and I do got to give a lot of credit to the voice actors involved, both the Japanese and the English cast. I feel like they took this, in my opinion, mediocre and underwritten material, and they were able to do their damnedest with what little they had. And I believe I don't know the name of the English voice actor, but I remember his internet name. Before he became a professional voice actor, he was actually one of those, like, old school Newgrounds.com animators named Kerfober, I think. Kerbofer. And he was one of those guys. I remember he was popular for making these like parodies of Super Smash Bros. Brawl back in like 2007, 2008. So it was super crazy to see this one guy whose work I used to watch back in middle school and high school, now to see him as like this kind of now in the big league sort of deal. Where he would just do, because back in the day, you had a lot of people like Bofer or Ego Raptor, Rina-chan or whatever her name was, all coming out of the woodworks when it came to like the indie side of YouTube and Newgrounds, and then to see them move on to bigger and better things. It's like, oh wow, I remember these. It's kind of interesting, nice to like follow these guys. It's like, and remember them from their big humble beginnings. But yeah, I do agree that the voice cast was great. The characters themselves, was never really that big into the cast from the first film, and I feel like they tried to do some interesting very interesting ideas here with Haruo. Like back in the day, I was like really annoyed with Haruo with his like one-track mind of killing Godzilla at all costs, kind of becoming this like insane Captain Ahab like individual obsessed with taking down the monster. Again, good idea, but I don't think, for him being so obsessed over killing the monster, I feel like there wasn't anything else to his personality. Like even Eren Yeager from Attack on Titans had this similar mentality, but there was more to his character than kill Godzilla, kill Godzilla, kill Godzilla.
I see your point.
But even like looking at Eren Yeager, he had friends, he had family, he had a personality, he had likes and interests. There were times where he was sad, times where he was happy, times where he was angry. There was more to Eren Yeager than just pure unbridled rage. So that's why I wasn't really so much a fan of Haruo, who was just nonstop angst mode throughout the first movie. For the second movie, he does calm down considerably, and there is an attempt at making a relationship between him and either Miana or Mina. And again, that would have been interesting for a human and Hotawa to connect to each other and maybe build a bridge between the two different civilizations. But again, they dropped that relationship, potential friendship entirely, because the Hotawa really barely contribute anything to the plot. There is some stuff done with him and Yuko, but it felt really rushed. It felt like very like a last-minute attempt at getting some kind of drama, just so that we can feel some sort of emotion during the during the climax of the movie, which I know worked for you, but for me it was like an hour into the movie, and so by that point I just stopped caring about this character altogether, because it's like you're doing nothing with this character other than having him go from point A to point B to point C and really doing nothing. Sure, he's calmed down and he's less annoying, but he just comes off as just more bland and dull for me.
Now let's go on to Yuko. Yuko, once again, I really enjoyed this character. A character that is the childhood friend of Haruo, and I enjoyed how she was this character that was nice and calm and cared for Haruo, but at the same time was also this very strong female character that was willing to fight and showed strength and wasn't this feminist garbage that Disney is trying to do with Star Wars. I really enjoyed her. I enjoyed her chemistry, her lines of dialogue, and I really enjoyed her romance with Haruo. I felt a connection between these two, and I really enjoyed seeing them get together. I did enjoy that. And Kana Hanazawa, she really does nail this performance, of course. I'm a huge fan of that actress. I'm a huge fan of everyone in this movie.
Okay.
Every actor and actress. And I felt she developed quite well. Very interesting character with great lines of dialogue. A one that shows care and is kind, but yet also is strong, powerful, and isn't just some SJW garbage like what Disney is giving with Star Wars. And I really enjoyed her. Very interesting character for me, and I want to see everything go well. Anything else to talk about her of? Overall, I find her to be quite interesting.
Okay.
How about you?
I did, again, there was another interesting idea here where it was established in the first movie that Yuko looks up to Haruo and is inspired by Haruo's actions to go and achieve the same type of goal that he does. And in the second movie, they carry that into a rather, they turn that positive character trait into a negative one, where with Haruo, he used to say, he had this mentality of doing anything, wanting to stop Godzilla at all cost, and so she has like adopted that mentality to the point where it ends up causing her and the humans more harm than good by the end of the movie. And it's almost like, in a way, Yuko is sort of like a warning to, like, what happens to Yuko is sort of like a warning to, or a wake-up call to Haruo, showing him just what happens if you go too far with your obsessions and you let your rage and your obsessions get the better of you, where it's like, he begins to say, wait a minute, maybe this idea of using the nanometal and Mechagodzilla City, maybe this isn't a good idea. But by then, it's already too late for Yuko, who has already taken on that accomplish the mission at all costs sort of mentality. And so it's like Yuko has become what Haruo was in the first movie, and she ends up suffering for that. And Haruo ends up having to deal with the consequences of his actions and what ends up happening to Yuko by the end. Again, I
enjoyed that about her.
I really like that idea. Unfortunately, it's like, again, all of this happens in the third act of the movie, which is an hour after an hour of nothingness. And I mentioned before, again, they try to do something interesting with Haruo and Yuko and the Billis de Ludo aliens. But again, this is like way into the movie. You have like maybe 20 minutes left of the movie, and I feel like this comes way too late, and this like obsession of hers, her romance with Haruo, it's just way too rushed, and it just like makes the pacing feel unnatural in terms of character development. Again, great ideas, poor execution in my opinion. Another thing that bothered me was when it came to the relationship between Haruo and Yuko is that apparently, according to Wikizilla and according to a number of people who have read extra material, they mentioned that Yuko and Haruo share the same grandfather, or rather, the grandfather that supposedly raised Haruo is Yuko's biological grandfather, while the grandfather adopted Haruo. None of that is made clear. It's like there is zero mention that these two knew the same elderly gentleman, except in this movie, they acknowledge that they know the same person. but they never acknowledged that they knew each other personally until the events of these two movies, which makes me say, how can these two share the same grandfather-type figure, but have never met each other until now? And if they are, do they count as family or not? Which makes...
would that be incest?
Yeah, it has some really fucking weird incestuous overtones here, given that they know the same person. And again, none of this is made clear, so it's like, unless there's like a straightforward answer, I know there probably is in some extra material, but within the context of the movie itself, it's just really fucking confusing as to how they grew up on that ship and how they know each other.
I'm hoping for an answer in the third movie, hopefully, because now that you mention it, like, wow, that's quite an odd idea right there.
Yeah, and
hopefully
again,
the third movie.
It would have been so much easier if both of them had two separate grandfathers.
Yes.
There's no
I always
reason.
thought the grandfather thing was like, what's going on here? I was a little confused throughout. Maybe I need to rewatch it again, but from what I noticed, I was always a little bit confused. Maybe I need to do some more research into that.
For me, I don't think you need to do any research, because if the movie doesn't tell you, then that's the movie's fault. Like, you shouldn't have to rely on extra material to help you out, help fill in the clues, because it's the writer's job to make the movie stand on its own.
True. I wasn't expecting this movie to stand on its own, due to the fact is writer Dino Dubucci, great writer, by the way. Even if you ain't a big fan of these movies, you should check out his other work. He's amazing.
I have heard a lot of good things about both Madoka Magica and Kamen Rider Gaim.
Psychopaths also, same with Fate Zero. He's a great writer.
Yeah.
He was originally writing this as a TV show, just due to the success of Shin Godzilla. They decided to cut it into pieces of a trilogy. That's one of the reasons why I'm a bit more forgiving on it. I'm more forgiving on it due to the fact is it was originally written as a TV show, so the last minute thing with Haruo and Yuko wasn't a problem for me. Due to the fact is I looked at it like I would in a TV show, and from not standing on their own, I'm hoping the final movie gives us more answers on that grandfather thing, because right now it's a little confusing now that you mention it.
Right. To me, this kind of feels more like one movie that was stretched out into a trilogy. If this movie feels a lot like the Hobbit movies, where it's like it's one single story or one book that was just stretched out into 3 movies. This doesn't.
Yeah, I see that.
From my perspective, given what little happens in this movie and how much of it recycles from the last movie, it just feels like this was like what could have been like 2 movies or one single movie that they just ended up splitting up. But anyways, are there any other characters you want to go over?
What's that alien's name again? Metphis, was it?
Metphis.
Yeah, Metphis. I really liked him. I liked his calm personality, this weird-ass religion he has. A very interesting character that even when Godzilla shows up, he's just very calm, with some very calm lines of dialogue that ran for him. And there's something I want to learn more about this guy, and he had me interested. He had this weird-ass religion. He had me wanting to know more about him, and Takahiro Sakurai, is that his name?
I'm not looking at the list of people who voiced in this movie, unfortunately.
Well, I think his name's Takahiro Sakurai. I hope I'm not butchering his name. I really liked him. He really nailed his performance of making me believe this alien. I believed he had these religions. I believed he was calm. He really delivered all his lines of dialogue so good. Like when Godzilla shows up and he's warning everyone about Godzilla. Every scene with him in it was just believable. I loved his performance, being very calm, matching his calm writing, and I think they really did nail him. Oh man, I wish I really written that. I really wish I written a script for this. I was able to go into deeper details.
That's all right. With Metphis, I mentioned before in my reviews for the first movie that he was my favorite character in the first film, and he's definitely got like the most mystery yet personality. He's got the most like mystery and personality more than any other character, which makes him perhaps the most intriguing character to watch on screen. Unfortunately for me, I get the feeling that he didn't really do anything in this movie, or he didn't really contribute much to the story, other than some bits of world building at the very end with the reveal of the fate, what exactly happened to his people's planet, and him kind of acting as like a consciousness for Haruo when Haruo potentially goes too far with his attempts to kill Godzilla. One thing I really did like though was the idea that the Bilisaludians interpret their ability, the Exif's supposed god and religion as just advanced calculations, where the Exifs, they believe that God is telling them that they should do this or that, whereas the Bilisaludians, they say, oh, that's just an advanced form of calculations, to where your advanced form of mathematical calculations tell you that this or that is the best option or the best route to take. I love that it's like what they interpret as advanced science, the Exifs see it as a religion and a divine entity speaking to them. It's a very interesting case of world building here, and a comparison between these two aliens' culture.
Yes. Any other character? What was the name of that one alien? I'm not gonna. There's a spoiler involved with him, and I don't want to say it. You should know what I'm talking about.
It's like
alien was his...
I believe the leader of the Bilisaludians was Galagu, and the other guy was like Ballyhoo, Balaboo, or Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo.
It's the one with the spoiler that I'm not willing to say.
Okay, so you want to keep this a spoil-free review?
Yes.
Okay. So, without spoiling, what were your thoughts on Salakadula, Michigabula, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo?
I thought he was interesting. I really liked his actor. He played Archer in Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works and Fate Stay Night. And he played in Food Wars and many other great animes. And I really did like him. He did develop from this one guy to just... You felt trust in this character. And then later he becomes different. He feels like he's a very different person. Can't really go into too much detail about him because he's, develops. I want to leave that to the audience to realize when they watch the movie. But there's a piece of development that goes on with him that everyone will notice when watching the movie. I did really like his performance. I forgot the actor's name, which I hate that I did because I really love the actor. He really did nail the performance of coming off as this very strong and powerful, tough guy, and he delivered all his lines well. I did really enjoy him, and he gave the character lots of personality, and his development wasn't out of nowhere. It felt surprising. I wasn't expecting it, and I really enjoyed it. Very unexpected development that was fitted in quite well, and I was surprised. Great twist right there that was handled.
Okay. It was, again, another very interesting idea. I did like the the evolution of this character, and I feel it kind of felt natural for the most part. I just wish that we had a chance to know him a bit more in the first movie.
I understand.
Because it felt like we didn't know a whole lot about these characters. In fact, when I saw these movies, I didn't even knew that the Bilisaludians were aliens, because they never really conveyed or properly introduced them in the first movie. And in here, it's like they still haven't done a whole lot with them in the first half of the movie, but by the second half, it's perhaps like some of the best writing in the movie was the Galagu and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo in their means of attempting to kill Godzilla, which may have dire consequences for the rest of the gang.
Yes.
Let's see. Anything else? Next.
Do you think there's any other character we should talk about, or do you think we should just move on and leave the rest to the audience to notice?
I guess we should do just that, because for me personally, there's no other characters that really stand out in my opinion.
I'll just say one thing. The rest of the cast and characters, the acting's of course great, and I found them all to be interesting and still interested to see where they're going to go, but can't really go into any more detail about that because we don't want to make this review overly long.
Right. Right now we're already about like half an hour in.
Okay. Um, what was after acting and characters?
Godzilla.
Oh, okay, Godzilla. I really do love Godzilla Earth. Yeah, he built him up like this kite. He took the planet Earth from these people, and Hollywood and all them wants to get revenge on this creature. And when they build him up, he's just amazing. Like with the music when he's coming up, or when he's asleep and he wakes up, it's like, oh fuck! I really enjoyed that. I like how he's a combination of muscular and fat. I like how they did that great, how they mixed it, a plant and an animal, taking elements of both. His design is really awesome, kind of inspired by 2014 a little. And his roar is pretty intimidating with awesome new abilities. Very powerful Godzilla that just was unique. I really loved him. He caused so much destruction. And the last movie did a great job of building him up. This one built him up well, too. You know, it's kind of like with Godzilla vs. a Sea Monster, where you're sleeping through most of the movie, and then he gets up, causes a little destruction, and goes away. Wouldn't you agree with me on that? That's like Sea Monster.
I would say Sea Monster, the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster did a lot more than this Godzilla did.
Well, I mean, he's sleeping through most of the movie, and he gets up and causes destruction. He didn't do as much as he did in the Sea Monster, but just like in that, he's barely in the movie, except less than he was in the Sea Monster. I also did really enjoy his animation. They did a great job of giving him some great textures, details, moving very well, and having a great plant look to him. That's all I'm going to get onto the animation until we get to the animation. But I really did love this Godzilla. Godzilla Earth is cool. Oh, and his new form in this movie where he's hot, where he's getting attacked by the humans and they're using their plan against him. They obviously took inspiration from Desugoji, aka Burning Godzilla. I really did enjoy it, giving him this really dope and intimidating look and even more power that just like, fuck yeah, when he shows up. I really did love that part about him. Don't know what to call him other than Burning Godzilla, because they probably took inspiration from it.
I remember I saw some merchandise of this version of Godzilla Earth, but I forgot what they called him. I remember in D-Man 1954's video, he also mentioned this merchandise, and I forgot what it's called, like not Eruption, it's just like Godzilla Earth something version. Like
I'll have to check that.
Eruption version? No, I'm not sure. But it's just like an extra word added to Godzilla Earth, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. I believe they probably took inspiration from Burning Godzilla, because if it's not, that's one big coincidence, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. They probably perhaps have taken a page there.
Yep. Which I think was cool. As a big Godzilla fan, that gave me a geek boner.
Let's see. As for me, I personally found this to be one of the most boring interpretations of Godzilla so far. I feel like the design itself of mixing elements of a plant and animal was very strange at first when we all saw those images when around the time that Godzilla Monster Planet was coming around. And I thought, okay, I would love to see what they would do with a plant-looking Godzilla. Are they going to do something new with him? Is he going to have an interesting backstory? Is there going to be a reason why he looks this way? And they don't do anything with Plantzilla. They don't explain why he looks this way, how he looks this way, how does it factor into what he does. In fact, it's like the whole plant aesthetic is practically pointless. He could look like anything and it wouldn't change the story. This version of Godzilla does nothing to stand out from any other Godzilla so far. Sure, he's got some, he has like a tail swipe power, but that doesn't factor into this movie. He can roar very loud, which barely factors into this movie. He can glow and turn really red, but as you just mentioned, that has already happened much in the past movie. So there's nothing really to set Godzilla apart from any other Godzillas in the past, other than he's bigger and he's green. Which again, that's not unique because Godzilla 2000 was green. And the thing is his size. Yes, he is the biggest Godzilla ever. Yes, he's supposedly the strongest Godzilla ever. He's the size of a mountain. And I know a lot of Godzilla fans are really obsessed for how big and powerful Godzilla is. For me, I could care less about how big he is. I just want a good story around Godzilla. But with this version,
at least you understand.
Yeah, he is big. But the thing is, if you didn't know going into this movie that he's supposedly 300 meters tall, you wouldn't
notice.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't notice that he is 300 meters tall because the movie does nothing to emphasize his size. In fact, it's like with the last movie, they had a smaller version of Godzilla running around.
Which is Godzilla Filius.
Right. I refuse to call him that because to me personally that sounds stupid. But
I understand that.
They dig a hole and they drop him into.
I kind of agree with you there.
They dig a hole and they drop him into the hole. Okay. Here's a bigger Godzilla. Yeah. What do? They make a bigger hole and drop him into it. So by the time they drop Godzilla into this big hole, his supposed big size is completely undermined. It's completely undermined. It's like, it's like there's no point in even making him that big if you weren't even going to emphasize how big he is and just have a bunch of machinery overpower him or like completely dwarf him.
You know what that made me think of, though? You know that popular meme from SpongeBob when Patrick says we need to take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else?
Right.
That made me think that what comes to mind is as Patrick starts saying, we need to take Godzilla Earth and push him somewhere else. And then having to push! Classic episode right there, though, by the way.
Funny enough, there was the same episode was used for another Godzilla meme for the last film. It's like, oh, we finally killed Godzilla. That's not Godzilla. And then he's like,
oh, yeah, I saw that. Did Godzilla shitposting share that?
Yeah, well, it was like the Alaskan bullworm. It's like, that's his tongue. Oh, that's the tongue, and this is the thing.
Oh, they posted some hilarious memes about it. Like their background photo with you stepped on my parents, and I do it again. And hello, senpai.
But anyways, yeah.
I really like that page. Very funny page right there.
Going back to Godzilla, in this movie, he just spends the majority of the time sleeping, and when it cuts, there's a point where the characters are talking, and then it randomly cuts to sleeping Godzilla, which is his first, like, on-screen appearance in the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be in this thing, and, again, he doesn't really do much to give him any sort of personality. He's just, I'm walking this way. Oh, there's some pretty robots. I'm walking this way. Oh, they're shooting at me. I'm walking this way. I'm gonna shoot him a laser beam. Okay, I'm walking. Oh, there's some machines. I'm gonna roar. It's like,
and I'm too high to feel the pain.
Yeah, it's like like this Godzilla is like doped up on what's it called? On the thing that's supposed to kill like the pain and turn you into like practically a vegetable.
Oh shit, I forgot what that's called, but I know what drug you're talking about.
But basically he's doped up and he's just like sleepwalking throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
So okay, so at the very end, he does turn glowing red and he fights back. That's cool. Visually that's cool. But if you really think about it, like he's doing nothing really interesting. He glows hot. For like they try to explain it, but I could not understand what any of it means. And, it's just a bullshit power he just pulled out of his ass. And then he just shoots his atomic breath, which it's okay, it's purple now, it looks cool, but it's nothing new, really.
I understand that.
So it's like, for me, Godzilla is like, just as, he's, in certain cases, in very few cases, he's visually interesting and creates a lot of interesting spectacle. But again, just like the last movie, where only at the very end does he look cool and does cool shit. But for the rest of the movie, he's just nothing. He's just boring. So this version is, as far as these two movies go, this is going to be one of my like least favorite or least entertaining versions of Godzilla that we've seen so far. Yes, I understand that Shin Godzilla was also a similarly personality-less character, a similar character devoid of personality. But I feel like everything around Shin Godzilla made up for its lack of personality, and the fact that Shin Godzilla was this like unpredictable creature that was constantly gaining new abilities as the movie went on. Unlike here, where it's just a single plant lizard thing that was just slowly moving and walking around. That's like less interesting than anything going on in Shin Godzilla.
Yeah.
But yeah,
though I do really love Godzilla Earth, I do see your point there. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, but anyways, if you like big green Plantzilla and you like him causing a lot of destruction just simply by walking, and you like the you like it when he does the stuff that he does in this movie, more power to you.
Thank you. But like I said, I see your point there. Because he doesn't exactly have the most personality. He's really just, a giant monster in this movie, nothing more. So I see your point. But I do think for what they're doing, they did a good job. I think they did portraying him like a giant monster better than they did in 98. I think you can even agree with me on that.
Probably, yeah, I would say so. Because 98, he was never really in a position of power.
Yeah, he was just this giant iguana. Like a friend of mine calls the movie Ferris Bueller 2, Attack of the Giant Iguanodon. I enjoy it as a popcorn flick, but it's not the greatest movie ever made. And there's many problems with the source material.
True, and I would say that Godzilla is at least more like Godzilla than Zilla 98 was. But this is like Godzilla in the most basic sense, I think.
Understandable, yes.
So anyways, moving on, you mentioned on your list you have music and animation.
Okay.
And I guess action can also fit into the animation as well.
Okay. Which one are we doing first again?
Whatever take your pick. It's your show after all.
Yeah, but you're more experienced.
Consider me like the training wheels to getting to your YouTube career.
Okay, thank you. You're doing a great job at that. How about the music? The music, once again, Takayuki Hatole, is that the composer's name?
Again, I don't have the wiki page on me right now.
I think his name's Takayuki Hatole. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but he did the music for Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Godzilla 2000 Millennium, Detroit Metal City. What else did he do? He did so many stuff, and many other stuff. He's a very talented composer. And, of course, he did it for Planet of Monsters, and I think he'll probably continue to do it in Planet Eater. I think his score was really good here. Like, in the action scenes, we got this really intense, blood-pumping music that really pumped up excitement. On the more dramatic scenes, we got this more dramatic music to really hit the emotion. Or on the scenes where they're just doing their work, we got scenes that really fit that. The science fiction-like sound to it. I really enjoyed it. And the music was just excellent. I really am a huge fan of this composer. I really loved his work in Space Godzilla's 2000, Detroit Metal City, and the Detroit Metal City movie. I'm not sure if he was involved with the anime. I haven't even seen the anime yet, but it's on my list. But I think he did a really great job. Once again, like when Godzilla shows up, he has this really, really intense music that plays that just really shows the king has arrived to really bring up excitement. I really loved the Godzilla in this movie, and I really loved the music he did to show him. And I loved it. I loved his whole soundtrack, so he did a great job at making where it matched every scene, being memorable and enjoyable, in my personal opinion. How do you feel about the music?
Let's see. I found the name, and it's Takayuki Hattori. And
Thank you.
For me, I found his past scores to be average at best. I feel like maybe his Godzilla 2000 score was perhaps more memorable than his Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, but he was definitely no Akira Ifukube, in my opinion. Nor what's the name of the other guy? Who I think it was Masaru Sato, the guy who did the Jun Fukuda movies, like Sea Monster.
I think so.
Yeah. Let's see. But when it came to his score for the last movie, I thought there were a few tracks that were interesting. Oh, to be honestly, the only reason why I found his tracks interesting was because they were reused. D-Man 1954 actually ended up reusing a lot of those tracks whenever he made a video talking about the anime trilogy. So it was actually D-Man 54 that actually helped make those tracks more memorable to me, in my opinion, because going out of the movie, I couldn't remember a single thing about his score. And that's mostly the case here with City on the Edge of Battle. Again, I can't remember anything about the score because it was just that bland. In my opinion, it just left zero impression on me whatsoever. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just there. Oh, and I found the secondary composer, Masaru Sato. I was right. But there was a couple tracks that dived into techno synthwave, and that was especially during the scene where they activate Mechagodzilla City, and you see like.
Oh, I really loved that track actually.
Yeah, that's the best track, and I wish this entire film could have had like utilized that sort of Tron like synthwave style of music. That one like stuck out to me in all the best ways. But
I understand. I really enjoyed all the tracks. Oh, and the outros, and the song that's on the end credits. I forgot her name. I have her songs downloaded on my phone, but she's an amazing musician with a great song that plays. Forgot the name of the song, but once again, she sung another great song. Forgot the name of the song, and I forgot the name of the singer. I'll have to check my phone because I have her songs downloaded.
Okay, so I believe it's Zai, and the song is...
Yeah, Zai, that's her name, Zai.
The Sky Falls.
Yeah, the Sky Falls. Yes, thank you, KaijuNoir.
The songs, they're good. I'd say they're good. I'm not as big as into them as you are. I mean, you clearly went out of your way to download them. To me, they're decent J-pop techno songs, and they work to the film's advantage. And of course, you got to have a Japanese monster movie end on like some pop song. So it's like,
yes,
yeah, they work for what they were they work for what they were meant to do.
It'll be interesting to see a kaiju movie with a metal themed kaiju movie, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't gotten that yet. But then again, it's because I feel like a lot of movies nowadays, they try to not pander, but they try to like pay homage to like the Showa era. So everyone's trying to do like their take on an operatic Akira Ifukube style score. Yeah. Or that's just the trend nowadays with film in general. No one's really going like full techno. No one has gone like full techno, perhaps since like the 80s or so, with a few exceptions here or there, like Tron Legacy and Daft Punk's score. But what you were saying? Oh yeah, I did have one little bit of negative like animosity towards the pop song for this movie, The Sky Falls. It was because, when I was in the movie theater, I was waiting for Mechagodzilla to show up, and I was like, wait a minute, this feels like the end of the movie, but Mechagodzilla hasn't shown up. Wait, nope, don't end, don't you fucking end. Cuts to black, you hear the pop song, fuck!
Oh yeah, I know that feel.
So it's like, as soon as I heard that pop song, it's like, fuck you.
I know that feel. Kind of like with Your Name. Your Name ended greatly, thankfully, but that scene in Your Name, that part of the ending where I was like, don't you fucking end. You end, I'm going to fucking go and kill someone. But thankfully, Your Name didn't end that way. It ended the way we wanted it to. You know what part I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Yes,
when it came to like City on the Edge of Battle, it ended not the way I wanted to. And
I understand.
No one warned me about the ending.
Nope. After that, since Your Name got me so invested, and me and my brothers were like, if this movie ends bad, we gotta go beat the fuck out of Shinkai. But it ended well.
Right. So I guess moving on to animation.
Yeah. Animation. It was really good. I thought the movements were very fluid. The textures were great. The lighting was well done, and I enjoyed how when they moved their legs and all that, all the movements were fluid, like the facial expressions, the leg movements. Everything moved fluidly to me. I loved the lighting of how the light shined on them, how the reflection and all that was done. It was very beautiful. I really enjoyed the textures of how you could see on the suits, how they have all the detail on them. The facial expressions are all well done, and I felt it looked really, really good. And the backgrounds looked nice, too. They didn't look bland, highly detailed, and were actually pleasant to look at, in my personal opinion, of course.
Going into the first movie, I was definitely not a fan of the animation style. I'm definitely not a fan overall of the anime industry's attempts at CG anime, in which they try to take 2D character art and try and take this 2D aesthetic and try to replicate it in a 3D environment, complete with the limited frame rate that anime is known for having. For those who don't know, traditionally Western animation has around like 24, 25 frames per second, whereas anime tends to have like around 12 frames per second. So there's like half as much drawings in the animation than you would see in American animation, which is why the characters often have more stilted, jittery movements, which is not that noticeable in 2D, but in 3D, when they're copying that frame rate for some bizarre reason, it just looks very uncanny to me. And however,
I understand.
When
we first saw CG on anime, it took some getting used to. It felt weird, but then as we got used to it, it feels natural to me now. But I can see your point, because it did take getting used to for me.
Right. And I feel like I have finally gotten used to it. I mean, again, I shouldn't have to get used to it, but I did get used to it, and overall, it wasn't as big of an issue until we got to the climax, in which the frame rate actually went the opposite direction, where we went from being too jittery to being really buttery smooth, especially with Godzilla. Like, Godzilla himself, when he was like walking, he would have these moments where he's like had very choppy animation, but by the time he was stuck in the hole, then we went to very smooth animation, but it became so smooth, it stopped looking like a movie and started looking like a PS3 cutscene. What I mean by that, it's like, it went from like I mentioned, like for a movie, I believe a movie generally has around 24 frames per second. This one jumped ahead to like 60 frames per second. So it's like, this stopped looking like movie animation and it looked like video game animation. And that like really like took me out of the how would you say, it took me out of the viewing experience as a whole. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? How come the frame rate is jumping all over the place?
I understand.
It's almost like if you're playing like how would I say it? Have you ever played an online game and you notice like sometimes there's lag and sometimes...
You mean online multiplayer?
Yeah,
yes.
You play online multiplayer. Sometimes it gets very laggy, but then it gets smooth, and then it gets laggy again when shit gets too chaotic.
The lag, I didn't notice it too much, maybe because my eyes finally adjusted to it, but I can see your point.
Other things I like about a thing I did like about the animation, you mentioned the backgrounds are amazing. I love this movie's color palette. It's much more visually engaging than the first film. The first film featured a lot of grays and maybe some like dull, desaturated blues and greens. Here, there's a lot of yellows, there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of red, a lot of beautiful use of red, there's some purple. It's overall a more visually pleasing experience, and there's some really nice shots here that depict the world that these characters live in. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of these worlds felt empty, even if they are visually interesting. One example would be like the Holtowa tribe. When you enter their like environment, their home, you see a lot of these like very small little hills with caves inside them, but there's like no people in there whatsoever. It's like it's a very empty, it's a beautiful environment, but it's a very empty almost lifeless environment. And that was like, like the environment, as much as I like the environments, the environments just felt empty and lifeless to me at the same time. So it's like I was really conflicted with the art. I like the art direction. The art direction I like. The animation, passable. The sense of variety is a step above the first movie. I just wish that this felt like more like characters actually live in this environment rather than it feeling a bit empty. But what are you gonna do there?
Yeah. For me, I thought the animation looked beautiful, but I can see your point there. I understand where you're coming from. Very understandable reasons.
Let's see. So other than that, we have action and drama.
Yes, action and drama. I think this does a great job at blending it together. Oh, and let's throw science fiction in there too. Action, drama, and science fiction sound like a good blend.
Hmm. I think this movie featured like a huge emphasis on science fiction. After all, I feel like all this movie was just like, hey, let's just take everything you know about Godzilla and turn it upside down and approach it from a wacky new sci-fi direction.
Yeah, me, I really enjoyed how it did blend action, drama, and science fiction. We did some mechs, which looked like something you get out of mech anime, which this was an anime, so yeah.
Oh yeah, this was.
I did like it.
I did really enjoy the vultures. They were they were way cooler. They were more impressive than the robots we had in the first movie. Every scene that they had with interacting with Mechagodzilla, having these aerial dogfights was really cool. How they were utilized in the finale was cool. Although, again, from my point of view, when I was watching the movie for the first time, I thought, okay, these are neat, but they look more like something you were going to introduce to fill time before Mechagodzilla eventually showed up. And it's like, by now it's like, oh wait, this isn't just like the appetizer before the main entree. This is the main entree. So
I agree with you there.
They work better as an appetizer than a main entree, or they work better as a side dish more than a main entree. They're cool, but they're not that cool. They're no Mechagodzilla. You're not going to replace these with Mechagodzilla. You're not going to get Godzilla fans to buy toys out of these.
Yeah, the vultures are cool, but they do not even fucking touch Mechagodzilla. They're cool. When
Toho made figurines based off of this movie, did they make a figure of any figures of the vulture? No, they made a figure of a robot that technically didn't exist the way it does in the movie.
Yep. I like the vultures, but still, yes, they do not compare to Mechagodzilla, and having them as a replacement is just really disappointing. We could have had Mechagodzilla, but they didn't really give us a Mechagodzilla, which is a disappointment.
To use my favorite quote to describe this movie, a quote from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory: "You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!"
Great way to put it.
That's what I get.
But overall, I did really enjoy the action. We did get a great climax between the. Still, it was similar to the first. I did enjoy the fight that we got in Mechagodzilla. I mean, not Mechagodzilla. I fucking wish. But what we got of the vultures and Godzilla, it was intense, violent, and we got it. And I like how it made it where we almost got Godzilla exploded, but also made it where he got to this more powerful form to really get the adrenaline pumping. I really enjoyed how things were done. Very well animated, very fluid. You had lots of cool explosions, great build-up, and lots of cool fights. And I liked how it blended with the science fiction, with the mechs, and how the technology and all that was done. The drama was done very well, too. We got lots of great characters, like the great romance between Yuko and Haruo, and very intense scenes putting characters in danger that I just really felt for it. And the ending really did pull at my heartstrings, having it where I really hope it ends well in part 3. It just did a great job of blending three genres together of action, drama, and science fiction. I really enjoyed how the science and fiction were both handled with the alien technology and all of that, with some great drama that pulled at my heartstrings, and lots of exciting action sequences that were fluid and intense. Now, your thoughts?
Let's see. So, there are a lot of interesting ideas that would have made for great action and great drama. My biggest issue comes from the pacing, where I feel like this movie tried to shove all that action and drama to the last 30-20 minutes, while the first hour or so of the movie is just nothing but exposition. Sci-fi exposition, kind of like trying to explain kind of explaining the Hotua, it kind of explaining nanometal, kind of explaining Mechagodzilla City, kind of explaining the original Godzilla, kind of explaining where the kaiju came from. There's just so much like walking and talking for the majority of this movie. It's that I feel like it was a poor utilization of drama and action. I feel like you could have just like spread that drama for most of the movie instead of relegating it to like the last act of the last third of the movie. So it's like as good as the drama and action is, I feel like it could have been much better had it not been shoved to the end of the movie.
Because, I see your point there.
As I mentioned in my original review, it's like I was so bored watching most of this movie is that by the time something interesting happened, it was already too late for me, and I kind of like just checked out after that. But
I see your point there.
It's obvious that you have a much greater patience with this series, and so it's like, for people out there who can tolerate this style of filmmaking, again, this is clearly a subjective sort of thing, People are going to experience film, movies, entertainment, what have you, in different ways. For me,
exactly,
I could not handle this style of pacing, but for other people, they might enjoy the pacing or like the direction this movie takes. And so if you're not bored to tears like I was, or then, there's a chance you could enjoy that interesting plot development and action once it comes along. And so, I'm for you to enjoy that stuff. It's like, I'm glad you were able to. I wish I could. I never want to be negative about a Godzilla movie, but unfortunately,
I see your point there.
That's just how my brain operated as I was watching this movie.
I see your point there. So I want to enjoy Godzilla's Revenge, but I can't.
And that's funny, because I actually enjoy Godzilla's Revenge. It's like,
I'm glad.
I have never harbored any hatred to that movie like so many others do.
I don't hate it, I just don't like it.
And for me, it's like, I enjoy it just because of how weird it is. It's like, every second of that movie, there's something weird, strange, and bizarre taking place that it's always...
I understand
it keeps my attention
in the
much...
Japanese audio, Minya's a girl, and in the English audio...
it's Barney the dinosaur.
Like fucking Barney!
Godzilla says I should learn to fight my own battles, Or if it's in this movie, Godzilla says I should be a lazy piece of shit who sleeps all day,
I could see Godzilla Earth telling Minya that. But anyways, I don't hate Revenge. I just don't like it. But I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, see, people experience media in different ways. You're
exactly.
Never going to have two people who are going to have like the exact same opinion on everything.
Unless people said a movie like The Room is a masterpiece in quality, then I'd be thinking, what the fuck?
I would be thinking, that's a very funny story, Mark.
Yeah.
So anyways, final thoughts and ratings?
Final thoughts and ratings.
Yeah,
overall, I really enjoyed...
Since we're about a little over an hour now.
I actually really enjoyed Godzilla City on the Edge of the Battle. It had great characters and great acting, in my personal opinion. Beautiful animation, a cool and unique take on Godzilla, an ending that ripped at my heart, and hoping everything goes well in the next, and a after credits scene that gave me a geek boner, and an absolutely astonishing soundtrack. A lot of people won't be happy that Godzilla's barely in the movie, but Godzilla isn't really in the whole thing of most of his movies, and I really enjoyed it. Had me engaged, and has me wanting to see what's going to happen next. Great pacing, great music, great originality with some unoriginal aspects. And it's entertaining. I want to see where this trilogy is going to go, and hope the final movie, which the final movie I won't be as nice to, since that is what these movies are building up to. So
right.
If that's
you can't say, "Oh, let's wait until the next movie, then it will be good." No, this is your last chance. 3 strikes, you're out.
Exactly. I'm gonna give Godzilla. With that being said, this is a great movie, and I'm gonna give Godzilla City on the Edge of the Battle a 10 out of 10. It's a great follow up to Planet of the Monsters, and a great setup for City on the Edge of the not City on the Edge of the Battle. I'm such a fucking retard. Planet Eater. I really enjoyed it. Now, your final thoughts and ratings?
Let's see. So, again, I was very intrigued when this trilogy was first announced. I really wanted to know what sort of weird sci-fi angles they can go to, because being that this is animation, this is in an animated format, I feel like you can do anything you want with this series. Unfortunately, what we've been seeing is nothing really new in the realm of sci-fi. A lot of these ideas with the characters and the sci-fi technology at hand. This is stuff that we've seen perhaps a million times over, done better. A lot of the themes are present in this film in particular are stuff that has been covered in other media, in other forms of in other Godzilla stories out there. I feel like there's nothing really interesting enough for me to latch onto with this series so far, and I doubt Planet Eater or Star Eater will do anything different that will significantly anything anything that's like significantly different enough for me to hold my attention for much longer. I just felt like the story, its pacing, its characters, its action, it all feels very dull, dry, unimaginative, derivative, and all around just boring. And I'm sorry to say, but like that first hour is just excruciating to get through. And by the time interesting stuff does happen, it's not interesting enough for me to hold my attention for that long. And in fact, when I was watching the English version, when I saw the Japanese version in theaters, I was almost falling asleep just with the hope of Mechagodzilla that was keeping me awake just for as long as I could. With
what a waste to keep yourself awake for.
Yep. And with when I was watching the movie on Netflix, I was actually watching it with my good friend Matt Deninion. For those who don't know, he is the writer of several kaiju thriller novels like Atomic Rex and Chimera.
Matt Denion's cool.
Yes, he is. He is the writer for novels such as Atomic Rex and Chimera, Scourge of the Gods, and his new book out now, Operation Megalodon. So he and I were just making fun of the movie as we were watching it, and it's like, again, if it weren't for him, if it weren't for him to make the fun of the movie with, again, I probably wouldn't even get to to finishing the movie on Netflix. But
you'd be in bed.
Yeah. It's not the worst thing ever. It's just, it feels like there was so much potential there, so many great ideas that could have been utilized, capitalized, and expanded upon, that simply just wasn't. Because maybe I don't know if it was the writers or the directors, or it was Toho that was holding back and saying, no, you can't do that. I don't know if there was any restrictions. I don't know if it was just laziness or just a lack of ambition. I honestly don't know, but I would say maybe just watching a documentary of how these movies were made would probably be more entertaining than the movies themselves. I want to know just who was behind a lot of the decision making with these movies. But again, there is a few things there, and if you're a Godzilla fan, or you're a sci-fi fan, then perhaps there is something for you there. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to give this a below average score of 2 out of 5.
Understandable. I understand your problems with the movie. You gave great reasons, and thank you for being on my show. It was an honor to have you here. You're an awesome guy, great critic that puts all your heart into your work, and you deserve more attention. You may be popular, but you deserve to be even more.
Thank you very much, man.
You are amazing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't agree that I'm popular, especially in the current YouTube surroundings. But I do appreciate you. I appreciate all your support, and thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this.
You're welcome, and thank you for being a part of it. Oh, I want to point something out of thing I bothered me at the dub. When people call him, it's pronounced Haruo, not Haruo.
Well,
it's
that's the thing. You're never going to do that. You're never going to get, like... It's just one of those things you're going to have to accept when it comes to Japanese and English pronunciations, because the Japanese R is very different from the English R. And
it's a combination of L and R in Japan.
Right. So it's not Ru, it's Ru. You got like lightly touch the roof of your mouth with your tongue. But that's something that for some voice actors they just can't do, and it's just more natural for them to use the R. For me, I have to concentrate rather when I'm using the R. The Japanese R, but for some voice actors, it's just much more easier for them to like get their lines out there.
It took time for me to learn.
Yeah, and for a lot of these voice actors, they're paid to speak English, not Japanglish.
And I'm glad, of course, we got them to say it properly in Japanese because, well, it's their language.
Right.
Which the dub, by the way, was decent. Yeah, that one alien, forgot which one it was. The dubbed actor was pretty bad, but the rest of the performances were decent, just like the first one. Of course, the Japanese audio was still better. it usually is. But for the most part, the dub was decent. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Oh, I remember there's one thing I forgot to mention about the animation. In certain crowd shots, you can see that there are certain characters in the background that have no faces. Their helmets are completely, like, spray-painted black. And that's just a bit of laziness I found that amused Matt and I when we were watching it. It's like, I can't see! Someone painted my helmet while I was sleeping!
Anyways, it was interesting to have two different perspectives on this movie. I'm glad. And thank you for respecting my opinion.
You're welcome, man, and thank you for respecting mine. And see, we can prove that we can have two different opinions and still have a civil conversation about it, as opposed to just jumping over on, just like trying to argue or shout over each other, saying I'm right, you're wrong, I'm smart, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm smart, you're dumb.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm smart, you're dumb.
What do you mean you don't agree with me? Don't you know who I am?
My opinion belongs to God. God made me a clone of him.
Bitch, I am God. All right, let's just end things before this stuff gets out of hand.
Okay, thank you for being on my show very much. It was really an honor.
You're welcome.
Anyways, see you later. I look forward to talking to you more. Hopefully we could do more of these down the road, wouldn't you say? Sounds like fun.
Yep, we'll just have to wait and see, as I always say.
Yep.
All right,
and
everybody.
I look forward to this my next video being a review of Godzilla 1998 with Zemzilla 99. Any chance that you'll be watching that video, my bro?
If I got the time, I will certainly do so.
Thanks, man. You're really awesome.
Thank
But
you
anyway,
very much.
I better get to bed because fuck am I tired and I had to be past my bedtime.
All right, then. So until next time, everybody, take care.
Goodbye, everyone.